All right, I believe we are live. So, welcome back to Archer's World of Literature, guys. Today, I'm super excited to premiere my first discussion-based streaming series, and it's called The Page Turner. And with me, I have none other than the graceful presence of Mike from Mike's Book Reviews. How you going, Mike?
I am just doing awesome, man. How are things down under?
Pretty crazy. We've got today is a sunny day. I woke up to rain, and then it became sun because the weather down in Melbourne is unpredictable.
Yeah, well, you guys are living in the future. I should ask you like all the sports scores and stuff. At least that's how we make that joke in the States, and it never goes over well. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of like, no, AFL footy season's over because for us, football is AFL, Australian football.
That's right.
The football season is over. We just had the grand final about a few months ago. I think it ends in September. It's actually the grand final is usually my birthday. So
yeah, we very unpopularly call that soccer here, and that doesn't go over very well with international.
And every time anyone says football and references like means it is soccer, everyone down here is like, "What are you talking about?
Yeah,
footy. That's soccer."
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start off with the most predictable question.
Okay.
What are you currently reading?
I am reading Stream to Silver. This is a Legend of Drizzt number 5. Yeah,
number 5.
It's the second book in the Icewind Dale trilogy, but yeah, just getting into Drizzt really. But I like everything that I've read so far. You know,
I've watched your videos on that, and I'm tempted to take them up because you said they're good palate cleansers.
Yeah, they're low commitment, you know, and it's nothing that's going to make you think too hard. But I don't think they're like insulting either. It's just easy, fun fantasy, throwback fantasy. It probably a little, you know, lower than either of our reading levels because I think it is very much like a, you know, probably like 8th, 9th grade could probably be starting a series like this. But you know what? Sometimes it's fun to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been like walking into the bookstore and looking at the Warhammer books and stuff, and there's like, how many of them are there? Is there like 30 of them?
Warhammer? I'm not sure. I haven't started that one.
No,
Drizzt, I think he's in the 40s. He's still writing them today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Warhammer, right? Is it Warhammer?
No, Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. I'm so sorry. My bad.
It's all right.
Christopher, hello. How are you going? Well, I keep saying this joke, and I think it's starting to get to the point where it's missing, but storming my way through Storm of Swords. So
nice. My favorite fantasy book of all time.
Crazy, man. I'm a first-time reader, so I watched the series, and I have a really unpopular opinion. I kind of didn't mind the ending.
Oh, really? Wow, that's refreshing.
I'm the only one on BookTube that says that. But for me, it's like I'm like a really non-critical person when it comes to TV. It's kind of just like if it's just explosions and fire and dragons, I just like that because it just got like crazy. But I feel like I'm a little bit exemptable because I hadn't read the books. So maybe I didn't have this like almighty sort of thing to compare it to. So I didn't feel too bad in saying that. Yeah. However, all my friends sort of dragged me under the bus for saying that. I mean, I didn't like. I'll just say Bran. Didn't like.
I think anyone like that. Even the actor playing him said he thought it was a troll when he read the script.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I remember I watched the table read and stuff, and when some Daenerys stuff came up, everyone was just like, "Oh, like,
okay, yeah,
are you serious?" But no, I didn't mind it because it was just some fun. But I think when I get to the books and stuff, I'll probably have a differing opinion when I rewatch it. Christopher, it's 38 books, I think, so still a fewer than Mike's years.
I know, right?
Oh, come on. That's low. Legend of Drizzt.
I am always open about my age because I want people to realize that, you know, hey, sometimes, you know, no matter how old you get, you still love to read, you know?
Yeah, I know, right?
I feel like BookTube is very much a young person's game. So, you know, as elder statesmen got to come on here once in a while and be like, hey, you young whippersnappers, we like books too. You know?
Well, then you motivate people like me. Like, I mean, yeah, you motivated me to come on here. So, I mean, you're doing your job.
Oh, nice.
I was talking to someone at work the other day who's got a smaller channel up and coming. And she was like, oh, I don't want to use my voice and stuff. I'm too old and stuff. And I'm like, you're like 38. You're like 37. Like, go for it. She's like, no, I'm too bashful. And I was like, come on, just go for your dreams. Just shoot your shot. But yeah, so I have these. I've got these. This is Storm of Swords, but they're split up. So it's part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, when they first put them out on a mass market, they had to do that because the binding would break, so they broke them into 2 bits. And then other releases outside the States, that's just how they released it. I think it was like Blood and Snow or something. I forget what they called it.
Steel and Snow and Blood and Gold. Yeah,
had Blood and Snow, right?
Yeah, you got mixed up. Steel and Gold and Blood and Snow. But Yeah, I was originally just going to read this one, and then I was like, oh, to avoid burnout, I'll read part 2 at another time. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna read it like it was intended. I'm just gonna go straight into part 2.
It'd be a hard one to stop, really. That's a
Yeah, I feel
pretty
like
good
I think
book.
it's gonna. I mean, I don't really know because first time reader, but I would assume it ends on one of the weddings. I would assume it's probably gonna leave at that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But so
Enjoy it.
yeah,
Enjoy it,
yeah,
man.
lips sealed. But no, I'm enjoying my time there. It's really really great. And so I think I'm gonna do the same with Dance of Dragons up there as well because they split up. They kept Feast for Crows as one, but then they split up Dance of
Really?
Dragons. So
Huh.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I work at a library, and the copies that we have, the old paperbacks that are intact, they're like you said, they're falling apart. So I think that's probably why they did them.
So working in a library, is that dangerous? Is that dangerous?
Oh,
Coming
it's
up
the
with
most
these ideas nonstop.
it's so dangerous, man. No, it's really really fun. I I think the only dangerous thing is because it's becoming more of like a libraries, at least here, they're a community space, right? And so I think the only real danger is public,
Oh,
right? If I can say that. That's about it. Most of the patronage is quite good, but you just have to be careful. We do get some incidents, so
I meant more like dangerous, like giving you ideas of more things to read and your TBRs.
oh no, yeah, that's terrible. No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's really bad. I find myself borrowing like 10 new books and stuff, and then I don't read them because I have my TBR, and then I get a bunch of fines when I work there, and I just have to like bring them back straight away. So
well, wait till you keep doing the channel, keep growing your community, you keep getting recommendations, and you'll change that TBR all the time.
yeah, I know. Well, I'm just
I can't even keep. I have one for December, and I've already these 2 books I've got right here. I was not reading either of these when the month started, and I had no plans to. So it's
really. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, I saw that you said that you wanted to turn into a bit of more of a spontaneous reader. So
trying to. I mean, I still want to keep some structure, especially if it's if other people are interested in reading it at the same time as me, because I don't want to like leave anyone hanging. But I also want to be like, you know what? Hey, I feel like reading a Driss book. I feel like reading Percy Jackson with my kids. Sure, let's do that.
Oh, did you start Percy Jackson?
I did. We're about I guess we're about like on chapter 8 or 9 or so. He's really liking it. We're only doing like a chapter or 2 per night. But yeah, he's all over it. I knew he would. He played this game recently on Game Pass called Immortals Phoenix Rising, which is all Greek mythology, and he got super into it.
Yeah.
And so I said, this is the perfect time to try this, because he got to the point where he kind of, I don't want to say grew out of Harry Potter, but we kept reading Harry Potter together.
Yeah.
By the time he got to the later years, he just wasn't really interested in owl testing and things like that. I think it was more like he's got to catch up a little bit more. So, but I said, Percy Jackson is going to be perfect timing for him, and yeah, he's all about it.
The owl tests are now fighting Medusa. So,
did you read Percy Jackson when you were younger?
Yeah, I read the first 2, and I think I read the first 2, and then I just kept going back to Harry Potter. I couldn't get out of Harry Potter.
Yeah, well, I'm reading. I'm like, man, this makes me want to read Harry Potter. Yeah.
Yeah, no, right? Yeah. No,
it's fun reading it with him. Yeah.
Percy Jackson's great because it's like, I mean, it's young. Would you say it's young adult or junior?
Young adult, yeah. It's definitely junior high level reading level. I think for sure.
I feel like it's in between junior and young adult, but it's like it's written in a way that I feel like it's aged really well.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's anything I'd probably be reading on my own, but reading with them is great. It's a lot of fun.
I think it aged well for people, people of your son's age and stuff. So, okay, next up, I do want to say, you've probably been asked this a lot. What's been your favorite thing about starting your channel?
Well, I mean, I started because several reasons. The main one being that I knew no one in real life that read all these books that I wanted to talk about. Like anytime I'd be like, yeah, Mike, we know you like Stephen King. We got it. They didn't want to hear about it anymore. They didn't want to hear about Song of Ice and Fire anymore. Well, the thing was, like, this was before the show. And then when the show got big, then all of a sudden they loved them some Song of Ice and Fire. But you know what I mean? Yeah. So really, it was just finding other people to be able to talk to this with. At the time, I had went back to school. And I was doing homeschool and being a stay-at-home dad at the same time. And I was like, I need some adults to talk to. I was like, I'm seeing a home with a 2-year-old. I need some adults to talk to. So I do this, see if it takes off. And, here we are.
Yeah. I think the community is it's incredible. Like the creators as well as the viewers.
Yeah. Sure.
And since starting my channel, I mean, like even like just one person regularly commenting, 1 or 2 people, whatever, it like really helps. And it's like I was in the same situation where it's like I knew people that read, but they kind of just read like, I don't know, like Dune over and over. And like I haven't read Dune, but it's just like just the one thing. over and over. They didn't really branch out.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of just like, oh, I want some more people to talk about, because I mean, in real life, not many people read epic fantasy. Like, it's pretty. I think when it comes to epic fantasy, a lot of people think that it's like too hard to get into, and they're afraid of like the commitment of like 15-book series and all that sort of stuff. And I think, you know, you can find more of those people online. So I think it's been that's been my favorite thing. And even like just you coming on the channel, and I've had Joanna commenting on some videos, and commenting with people like Alex, Tall Guy Reads. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a great community. It really is, and I'm talking about the creators as well. I mean, I've only ran into a couple that, well, let's just say we didn't get along. But I mean, I feel like I can get along with anybody. But there are some people who, you know, you get the big age difference. It's hard to find common ground on some things. It's about everyone. I mean, 99.9% of all creators I've talked to, it's been just a blast. It's been great.
Yeah, and I was talking to someone as well at work about the good thing about Booktube is that it's like not everyone has the same opinions, and if everyone did, it wouldn't be fun, right? And so I think that's a really good thing about having, especially with a platform like YouTube, where we've got people like coming in from all these countries. Like I'm in Australia, you're in America, and it's like, you know, we've got different life experiences, you know, different ages, whatever, but everyone can come on this one platform and talk about those things together. And I think it's a really positive environment to promote reading. So
yeah, I look around sometimes, and like some of my real life friends are like, really, people have that much interest in fantasy books, huh? I was like, hey, I didn't know it existed, but apparently I finally found my people, and I'm very, very excited about that.
You're like, I
guys would talk to me about it, you know? So
good way to trick people into reading epic fantasy. Never say how long the series actually is.
Yeah, that's a great point. I tell people all the time, I was like, you know, if you guys really want to get people to read Wheel of Time, stop selling it to them by saying books 7 through 10 are really lousy, but the rest of the series is great. I know. No one's going to want to read a series with 4 lousy books in it. Stop saying that. Just say, yeah, try it. You'll like it. You know?
Yeah, because I watched, how I discovered your channel was, you know, I know a lot of people give you this answer, was the Wheel of Time videos. And that's when I started reading that, and I was starting to read it and I was loving it. And then I was talking to a friend, I was texting a friend who'd read it years ago, and he's like, oh yeah, just watch out, like, you know, take some breaks because 7 to 10 sucks. And I'm like, dude, really? Come on, like, let me. You really have to tell me that now.
Yeah, like I'm getting flack from people right now that are big Malazan fans. So I'm taking a break in the middle of that, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna forget everything. You just either need to finish it or just quit." And I'm like, "Says who?" I was like, "I always take breaks in series that long. You know, I took a 6-month break for Wheel of Time. Now I've taken 8 months with Malazan. I was gonna quit, guys. I just made a video recently saying, "Hey, here's a series I'm quitting," and Malazan wasn't on that list. I don't care. I'll tell you if I'm gonna quit a series.
You write notes when you read epic fantasy, right? You write notes?
I try to, if there's like a, you know, a huge cast or something, I usually just write some of those names down just until I remember who they are, kind of thing. I feel like if I write it down once, I remember it. That always helps me. But with some series, that's why I quit doing back in the Wheel of Time days, I did like full spoiler reviews. And I did it with Dresden Files too.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing that because I felt like I was just, you know, doing nothing but reading a book to take notes. And I was like, that's not why I read. So I stopped doing the full spoiler reviews. I just have like spoiler talks now where I just talk about my favorite parts. But as far as like just full on, like taking us, no, but I will make a note of, okay, here's this person's involved with this and they're from this region and stuff. And then when they all kind of coalesce together, then I just, you know, I'm good with it, but I'll make some to start with.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you, like, people who say they don't get burnout, like, I know that there are people who don't get it, but I'm like, how?
Yeah, burnout's real, man. It is.
You're reading all of it in once. Like, I could not imagine reading Wheel of Time. Like, what is it? It's like 1.5 million words or something like that.
I used to know the answer to that. 4.4 million, I think. 4.4 million.
Okay, I was a quarter off. Jeez.
Yeah, it's a big one.
I couldn't do it.
You know, it took me over a year to do it, but that was with taking a 6-month break. And the only reason that I ended up taking less, you know, that little bit of time, because I thought it'd take about 2 years, is because I thought at the time I was going to be going to JordanCon and I wanted to finish the series. I didn't want some clown and some cosplay to ruin the ending for me or something. So I thought I'd finish it before JordanCon. And then it got canceled because of, you know, the virus. But, but you know, hey, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, like I finished The Shadow Rising about, I think, I read the first 4 quite close together after watching your videos with breaks in between. And I think I finished The Shadow Rising in about April. and I haven't.
I
I think
took
it
a
was
break after Shadow Rising, a break after Lord of Chaos, and then, like I said, I just kind of speed ran the end of it because I was just racing the clock before Jordan
yeah,
Con happened. But
Jordan
yeah,
Conrad.
take breaks, man. Definitely take breaks.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but then I get really paranoid because I'm like, I know I don't really forget things too much, but then I get like all these people, who are
Well,
very against the clock
that's why I
online.
started making Wheel of Time videos, is because I
Yes.
knew I wasn't going to read this all together. So I wanted to make those videos so I could go back to and be like, okay, that's what happened. That's who this character is. So that's why I
Yeah,
started. So make yourself some video journals. That's the
I
best way to
will.
do
I
it.
will. That's like my favorite thing about. I know the like book reviews don't do as well as the hauls and the
Yeah,
TBR lists and all that sort of stuff. But for me,
good
they're
reference.
my favorite things to do because it's like a video diaring, like noting what I'm doing. I just wanted to point out, Sebastian said, "I'm gonna start Malazan next month. I'm busy finishing up Wheel of Time right now."
I would say make sure you. I had the same thing. I was so excited to start Malazan, but I hadn't finished Wheel of Time, and I said if I start Malazan before I finish Wheel of Time, I will never finish either of them. So
No,
I said, I'm going to finish Wheel of Time first. So I'm trying to do this thing now where I'm only going to have one really long series going at a time. Now
yeah,
something like Drist or Robin Hobb, they break
yeah,
their series up into trilogies, so it's easy to say, okay, I can stop at a point, but I'm not doing another like 10 plus book series
no,
again
I can't do
for a
that. I
long
can't, I
time.
can't do multiple like trilogies at once, like
Yeah,
let
I love
alone
doing trilogies. I knock those out in like a month. It's
a
great.
month.
I love
Yeah,
it.
they're awesome. Uh, Seems a bit too dense. Yeah, I mean, I've heard like, in your experience reading it, how does the denseness affect your enjoyment?
Of Malazan? Oh
Yeah,
man. It's got some struggles. It really does. And it's got some things that will make you feel like your brain's broke a little bit.
yeah,
And the thing that everyone will tell you is just wait, it'll make sense later. Or, or don't worry about it. There's even the characters don't know what's going on. And that might be something some people love. It was a little rough for me. I was really enjoying it. Just book 7 really took a lot out of me because it was
yeah,
so long, and that was the first one I really just didn't particularly care for at all.
yeah.
And we're talking 1,400 pages of a book
I
that
know.
you're not really enjoying. And I started reading the next one. I was like, I'm just not having a good time right now. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break, because if I keep reading, forcing it with burnout, I'm
Yeah,
going to hate reading it. I didn't want to
yeah,
do that. But it's not one of those things where like you have to have a freaking PhD in science or something to understand the series. It is rough, but if you're one of those people who's like, you're fine with, if it needs to make sense, it'll make sense later, you'll be okay.
yeah,
But if you're that type of reader like me, where you're like, no, I have to understand why they're doing this and why they're
yeah,
this, then it might be tough for you. It might be
yeah.
tough for you. So that's
Well,
that's something that was hard for me to hang on to for a while. But I finally got there by about book 4. Yeah.
yeah, book 4. Well, I think it's so annoying because it's like, why can't they all be consistent? And it's just like, the author probably falls into a bit of a slump or whatever, and it's just like they always pick back up at the end. They always go crazy at the end, and it's just
Yeah, I
like,
think it's really hard for a lot of people because almost every book he changes the cast. There's no
yeah,
real central character in that story, and
I
there's
have heard
no
that.
clear cut good guy or bad guy. So it's really rough for a lot of people. But
Yeah,
I know people think that when I say that I'm being critical of it. Look, it's a challenging read, but I think it's a very
mhm,
good read. I think it's a very ambitious world. You just have to be ready for it.
yeah.
Don't
I
start that as
really
your first fantasy series. Do
No,
not.
oh no. I remember when I started Wheel of Time and I was watching some people's like reviews after I'd seen yours, and they were like, don't make this your first entry. This is probably not going to be, a first entry for fantasy or whatever. And for me, that was the first fantasy series I'd picked up
Hmm.
since probably like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit in like early high school.
I think it's really, yeah.
Because
You read Lord of the Rings first. I always tell people, and if you
yeah,
like that, you can keep going with like Shannara or move along to Wheel of Time or something. Yeah, I think so.
yeah. I mean, because for me, I stopped as a kid. I was a very avid reader, and high school put me in a huge slump because you've been forced to overanalyze text and stuff, and you
Right.
don't have much time for the enjoyment. And so for me, that was a really, really big thing. And I wasn't into reading at all for 4 or 5 years or whatever until about last October. I had some family issues, some things that were going on and stuff, and I picked up a book, and then I was like, oh, this is really helping me leave that sort of space and find another world and stuff. And so only about October last year, about a year ago, I got back into reading, and I was just reading random like thrillers and just a couple of standalone sci-fi or whatnot. And then I stumbled across the Wheel of Time ads for the TV show were going around on the bus, So on all the buses in Australia, they've got probably like in America, but the ads are like span the entire bus. I was going around. It was this huge picture of Moiraine, like doing these ones, like looking back, you know. And I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. And then I saw the books in the store, and I thought the covers were really cool, and I thought it was really interesting. And I bought a few of them. And then I was like, this looks a little intimidating. So I Googled Wheel of Time. Or I think I YouTube searched like before you read Wheel of Time, watch this or something, and that's when your overview video came up. And I didn't have a problem with it, even having such a jump from fantasy and reading in general. I really didn't have that big of a problem with it. I feel like it feels honestly kind of the same as like A Song of Ice and Fire or whatever. It's just a lot of house names and sort of different.
If you've read something like George R. R. Martin, you'll be fine. But for a lot of people, it's just like there's just so many names, and they just become overwhelmed with it.
Yeah.
And I just I would tell people, if it's an important name, Jordan will make you remember it.
Yeah, he will. He will say it over and over and over again. Well, I feel like the thing with that as well is it's like the characters have like multiple names.
Yeah,
like
that's fun, ain't it? Yeah. And then their weapons have names and multiple names.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, past names. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got flashbacks to the sword fight scenes where it's like, you know, flying raven.
Oh yeah, crouching bear. Yeah, it's
crouching bear and undercut waterfall and stuff. No, so I'm gonna go to this next question. The one that starts with honest opinion.
Oh, okay. I love those.
Honest opinion. Do you think that we will see A Song of Ice and Fire finished?
Every time I try to get optimistic about it, then there's a new article that comes out about George being like, "Oh yeah, I got 500 pages left."
I saw that,
and
I saw your video, and I was like, "Are you kidding?"
It's those things where like I feel like we'll get When's a Winner, even if it's posthumously. I don't think we'll see Dream of Spring, because I really feel like he'll start He'll start writing Dream of Spring and be like, "I'm not going to be able to wrap this up in one more book." I think that's what he would do, and so it's just I just don't think that he can finish it. Honestly, I think it's just got too big.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think every time I hear that he's been going to like his own forums and asking people like, "Hey, what was Cersei doing in this?"
Yeah, he does have fact checkers. Yeah,
faction was Arya in or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, he's could have gone. It's almost like he's gone too big for his.
Yeah. It'll always be maybe my favorite fantasy series ever, even incomplete. But as it getting finished, no, I don't think so. But I do think we'll get book 6.
Yeah, I think we'll get Winds of Winter, but like you said, I think he might. I'm still gonna be positive about it. Like we'll get it, right? We'll just tell ourselves we'll get it.
Yeah.
But I think it'll either be unfinished, or I can't see him passing it on to another person.
I don't think anyone would want to. Brandon Sanderson finishing Wheel of Time was just such a unique thing, and I feel like anyone else, like everyone, when I talked to Joe Abercrombie, everybody wanted me to ask him what he thinks about it. And he said like he wouldn't do it if he was offered it. You know, I mean, just think of the mountain of expectations from doing something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that if anyone did it, it'd be Daniel Abraham, because he was kind of the guy that writes Expanse, and he's got several of his own series as well, because he worked under George for so many years. And I think that would be the guy they would have finished it if he was going to pass it on. But I feel like George's the type that will have it. Everyone at his estate know that if I die, burn all my notes and all
he will.
He just
like
that type. Make his readers cry one last time. He's on his deathbed thinking about.
Yeah. I don't know. It's because it is probably I would say it's my favorite. Even only halfway through Storm of Swords, I can tell it's going to be my favorite.
It's amazing.
It's crazy. But I feel like even with it being unfinished, there's a part of me that's kind of like, can I call it? Can I say it's my favorite series of all time?
Yeah. I started thinking about it. I was like, really, the only criticism I have of it is it's not finished. Other than that, it's amazing. Everything is amazing, and it's better than just about everything else out there, which makes it infuriating. But it also was like, but hey, I got to put some respect on it because it's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the only criticisms I've heard of like a couple of the later books are just like, oh, the POVs weren't that interesting or whatever, and it's just like,
disagree.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard exactly who they are, but I've just heard people say that they're not as interesting. And I've been going through Storm of Swords, and every time a Catelyn chapter comes up, I'm just like, can we go back to Tyrion or Arya, please?
No, you will have some of that, but I'm never like some books where I'm like, oh, you know,
Yeah,
when I turn the page and see it's that character, I never have that
just throw it across the room.
George's
Yeah,
books, but I will have some things. But like, can I get back to this though? Because that was really going good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think the only time I do have that is when in Wheel of Time when it comes up to what's the it's been so long since I've read it. What's the main girl from the Two Rivers who goes out with?
But Egwene,
Yeah, Gwen.
Egwene.
Every time, I think that's the only time. I mean, I'm not sure how she turns out at the end, but at the start when she's just like, "I hate magic, but please teach me magic. I hate magic." I'm just.
She's a divisive character in the fandom. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
But I think
It's like you haven't seen nothing compared to Elaine. Egwene's just honey pie. Yeah. So
God, yeah, no. But I think with the Song of Ice and Fire, it's like even if I'm not, I think all the POVs are great, but it's just I like some a little bit more. So there's none that are really like, oh, I hate this. I hate this. I'm not the biggest fan of seeing. I'd rather see Daenerys over Davos. I'd rather see Arya over Kat. But it's like I get to see what's going on in the other areas. So I'm happy with it. Jesse, I haven't read it, so Mike, this is for you. When should you read New Spring in the Wheel of Time series?
well, don't read it first because it does spoil some things. My recommendation is publication order, which is between books 10 and 11, or is it 11, 12? Anyway, I think it's right before Knife of Dreams or right after Knife of Dreams when I did it, and because it does spoil some things about how Lan and Moraine actually became a thing, how their partnership began, and it will spoil some things that you won't get to until much later in Fires of Heaven. But it's one of those things I say, don't read it first, but don't read it last, because trust me, you want your last impression of that world to be a memory of light. You don't want it to be some flashback book that would be very anticlimactic. So I say right before, right after Knife of Dreams would be my suggestion.
All right. Yeah, I think I was watching another YouTuber's video, and they said to read it after Fires of Heaven.
You can. That's when the you can't be spoiled by what happens in it.
Yeah. So is that the chronological, or probably like the
not chronological. There's Scott. He's always going to say publication order. Between 10 and 11. So it is before Knife of Dreams. That's what it was. Yeah, because there's something that happens in Knife of Dreams with Land that actually like really makes just so much more sense if you've read New Spring first. So yeah, anytime after 5, but before 11. How's that?
Okay. All right. I'll stick with Scott on this one. I'll stick with you and Scott. Publication order.
Oh, Scott will, no matter what it is, he'll tell you. I don't care if it's out of timeline order. Always do it in publication order, and we agree on most of it.
Yeah,
most of it. But Narnia should be read the way that C.S. Lewis said it should be read. There.
Oh, there we go. All right, bit of controversy. Well, I'm reading. I'm slowly getting my way through. Speaking of publication order, I'm reading. I do like chronological order a lot of the time, but I'm reading all of the multiverse in publication order. So I'm starting with all of Stephen King's from the first in publication order.
You have my support on that one. That's good stuff.
Yeah. What would you say publication order? I mean, I know you're going to get things if you read the Dark Tower first.
I think so, because especially if you are planning to pilfer in the Dark Tower at the same time. Yeah. Because in the 90s, he was real. Because I've been going through the 90s stuff recently and see just how much Dark Tower stuff he's pouring into everything.
Yeah,
I feel like it's something, if you read all the Dark Tower first and then you go back and read those, you're gonna be like, oh, I wish I'd known that before I read the Dark Tower. But also you'll have those things where you read those before Dark Tower and like, that makes no sense. Yeah. And then you read Dark Tower. So it's like, read those in publication order and you'll see that he was working towards something.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to, you'll see the Easter eggs when he intended.
Most of them are like Easter eggs. You don't have to. It's not a Marvel movie. You don't have to watch 8 episodes of Loki to understand the next Doctor Strange movie. It's nothing like that. But it is with the Dark Tower, I think. There is some things in Dark Tower that's like, like, for example, Insomnia. If you read Insomnia before you read book 7 of Dark Tower, it's like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense. But if you read it before, or after, you'll be like, oh, well, I wish I had known that when I was reading Dark Tower, so.
Well, Insomnia released before 7 of the Dark Tower?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to follow, publication order, comma, always.
So I think by the 90s, he just assumed, look, people are either know that I'm writing the Dark Tower or I'm just going to make them read the Dark Tower. And he just started littering in stuff that was going to play into the Dark Tower. So, because I think it was when he was starting to really come up with the ideas for the ending. So, I say if you're going to do publication order, that's great, especially for Dark Tower. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm at, I feel ashamed to say this in front of such a King fan, but like I said, I've just got back into reading only like in the last
Better
year.
late than never, man.
Yeah, that's true. I've only actually read 2 Stephen King books. So I have only read Carrie and Salem's Lot. There we go.
Yeah.
And so the next one is
Shining. The Shining, and then The Stand.
Shining. Well, actually, I think it was either I can't remember if it was Carrie, Salem's Lot, Rage, and then The Shining, or The Shining and then Rage.
Well, if you're going to work in the Richard Bachman books, yeah, he did write him at that point. They were just kind of released, before anybody knew who he was. They knew before they knew he was Richard Bachman. So you can go back and do those. I didn't read those until the Bachman books, like a collection, came out. And hell, I didn't read Long Walk until like 3 years ago, and that book blew my socks off. So yeah.
Is there any Dark Tower or like multiverse references in the Bachman books?
If there are, I don't recall any.
Yeah, okay. I guess
maybe the Regulators, but by the time that came out, everybody knew who he was. He was just kind of doing it just tongue in cheek at that point.
Yeah. Well, I think I went into the bookstore and because I was like, I'm gonna go in and get them in publication order, and I just got just finished Salem's Lot. I was like, I'm gonna go buy Rage, and then I was like, where's Rage? And then I googled it.
He's like all embarrassed about Rage because it's about a school shooter. Yeah. And I was like, when have you ever not embarrassed about things that are controversial, man? I mean, you've been doing it your whole career, but now you regret it. I mean,
yeah. No, I was seeing your most recent. What was the one about the cop? I've forgotten the name. The one the most recent review.
Fairy Tale or Desperation.
Desperation, yeah. And you were saying that there was some like crazy stuff that was going on there, some kids and stuff, and I'm like, you didn't want to take that off shelves, but you took. I think with Rage, it was it like social pressure? I think he might have gotten pressured in the media, kind of.
Oh, I mean, probably. I mean, everybody's getting in trouble for stuff they did 40 years ago now.
Yeah, literally.
I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where, like, as a person, he's changed his views since then. Yeah. I think. I mean, when he wrote most of those Bachman books, I mean, he was a teenager, So
yeah, okay. Yeah, well, it's quite rare you see people banning their own books, but
right.
he did it. I'm assuming I can probably find it because I mean, for me, it's like even if he's ashamed of it or whatever, it's kind of like I still want to see, what he wrote back then, what's going on in his mind and stuff. So I think the only way to find it would be a scan, as unfortunate as it is to say. I think if you can't get
there is that Bachman books collection, but it might be kind of pricey to get a hold of.
Not there. Well, I mean, you'd have to get the old one because I saw the Bachman collection at the bookstore. Maybe they don't have it in Australia. I'm not sure, but I know Australia's got some pretty tight laws on certain topics and what can be put in media and stuff. But I was looking through it and I was like, oh, it's a Bachman book. So I flicked through and there was no Rage. So
really, okay,
yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
I might have to find it as an ebook or a PDF. But either way, I'm loving my journey through the multiverse. I just wanted to say, Caitlin, you're making me hungry. Making tacos.
I know she's always on our patron calls and she's like cooking dinner and stuff. And I'm like, what
you smell the sizzling through the microphone, yeah. Okay, so I wanted to move on to the classics because my channel is sort of focused on fantasy and classic literature.
Well, you talked about high school earlier. Do you feel like high school kind of ruined classic books for a lot of people?
For sure. For me, it was sort of sparked when I read 1984 after high school, and I was like, oh, classics are actually really fun.
Yeah.
There's some cool stuff in here. But for most people, I think like there's a lot to say, but I think the general educational system, at least, and I'm not sure what it's like over there, it's probably quite the same. I think it's probably doing more worse in terms of making adult readers than it isn't.
Well, the difference now is they're banning all those books here. I don't know about they're banning
all the books are being
they
banned.
Encouraged us to read in high school. Now apparently they're damaging. But no, I do feel like I was lucky in that I had some of the teachers be like, look, here's like 5 classics. You guys pick one of them, and I got to pick and choose. And I think that's why I got mostly ones that I liked, whereas other people got forced to read like Death of a Salesman or Great Gatsby or something. I'm like, oh man, sorry, or a bunch of guys being forced to read like Emma or something. It was great book. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it might not be the
demographic.
But I think it does do a lot of damage. Like for me, like I didn't read Hemingway for the longest time because they made us read Old Man and the Sea, which I didn't care for.
Yeah.
So I mean, it can be damning and damaging, but I don't know. I'm always finding myself curious about why has this book endured for 100, 200 years? You know, it's got to be something in it that's special. So basically, they tell me, oh yeah, it's banned. That makes me just want to read it more. You know,
Yeah,
find out what's wrong with it.
I really enjoy banned books as well. But I would recommend to people, if people are like sort of shunned away or shied away from classics when you finish high school, when you finish high school, go and pick the books that you weren't like made to read that interest you. So go and pick, 1984, or go and pick, Treasure Island, or whatever it is. Just go and pick those and go, I don't have to overanalyze this. You can enjoy it as a story. And I think one thing that I really find interesting about them is, sure, the language might be hard in some of them, but the stories, and when you read it and you go, someone had this idea 200 years ago.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Like reading Frankenstein. I can't believe that book's that old, and
Yeah,
it
I know.
still resonates. Yeah. We're still
Well,
talking about it today,
I did get Frankenstein down because I saw this was on your favorite classics, or the 14 classics you enjoyed video. This was one that I was forced to read in my final year of high school.
Really? Wow.
So,
great.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. This might be a bit of a, well, it won't be a differing opinion, because I guess it's a different experience. But I despised it.
Really?
Hated it because I was forced to read it, and I was I wasn't allowed to, because when I actually read it, I read it over the summer holidays, like I think similar to how you had your summer reading list and stuff like that. So I had to read it over the summer and then come back, and then we started the work. I enjoyed it when I read it. I really liked it. It was fun. It was scary. And then as soon as you start, getting made to write the essays and stuff, it sort of plagues, your experience of it. So I don't have a good memory of this book. I'm like, this caused me so much stress and anxiety, and, I didn't like the questions I was given. But now that I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't have to do that anymore. I've sort of left that trap where it's like, I don't have to overanalyze it. I can enjoy it. I'm ready for a reread. So I'm going to be
reading classics when you're not in high school. It's great because no one's going to quiz you on it when you're done.
I know. And if you miss something, it's like you're not going to get an F. You're not going to be afraid to go home after school to your parents.
Honestly, there's still so many great ones I want to read that I haven't, and I need to be like, dude, pump the brake on fantasy a little bit and check out some of these classics. Because I did Call of the Wild this year and I loved it. And I was like, wow, it's easy to see why this book's still so popular. So
you've promoted that one to me. I've got my eyes on that. But I mean, for me, all of these, where my fingers are, I haven't read most of them. I've just get them, and I've read maybe one or so by the author, and I'm just like,
I just did a video of my shelf tour, and it was over 900 books, and people are like, how many of them have you read?
How many have you read?
Maybe half,
That's good.
I mean, that's the thing, is I tell people, is like, I'm not buying books because I want to read them immediately. I want to have them to read someday,
It's
lots of things on my shelf recently that I've been like, oh, I don't know if I'll ever get to that. I have, so it's just, where's the fire?
It makes you happy having, like, the biggest question that I get, and it annoys me so much working in a library, when I come back from my lunch break or whatever, and I've got a bookstore bag and I've just bought something, whatever, my colleagues will be like, why are you buying books again? You work in a library. And I'm like, but and I sort of just get all like this speechless, and then I just usually just storm off, and I'm just like, it's my collection, it's my home library, it makes me happy. It makes me happy. And then
every one of my book holes. Couldn't you just get these at the library? I mean, you could, but I like to have books. I mean, it's like, I don't collect any other media, guys. I don't buy CDs anymore. I don't buy movies or anything like that. I don't go and buy a bunch of action figures or whatever it is people do these days. Like, I like books.
Other people have got other. I mean, I do have other collections, and that's probably why I'm as broke as I am. But
I didn't say I never had these. I'm just saying right now it's the only media that I collect.
Of course. Your coffee mug collection is I'm envious of it. But I don't know where to get book coffee mugs in Australia. Do you get most of yours online?
I don't know. There's a great site, Creative Lee Crafts, but Leigh is her name, Creative Lee Crafts.
Yeah,
and she makes tons of book themed mugs. First Law, Red Rising, Witcher.
Yeah, that's the First Law one she did.
All kinds I've gotten from her, but I don't know if she ships to Australia, so I don't know.
Yeah, really hard. I mean, there's probably a few that I could find here as well. I think the only
ones
they do,
it's probably just an exorbitant amount of money. So
No, the shipping would be. I think shipping to Australia is about It's about like 70 Australian dollars. It's like
I,
100.
when I talked to Jay Kristoff, he's talking about sending me an arc of Empire of the Vampire. Just even though the book was already out, he just wanted to send me one. It's like a thank you, and he was like, "No offense, mate, but it's like $100 to ship it to you." I was like, "Man, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Just give me the digital of book 2 early, and we'll call it square."
Yeah. Well, it's like every time that I've wanted to like before I started my channel and stuff, and when I was just a non-booktuber myself, and I was like, oh, I want to send Mike a letter or something like that, and I was just like, actually, I'll just stick to the comments section.
I have patrons in Australia, and when I have to ship them that coffee mug, it's like, well, I just took a loss. Yeah.
It's like Patreon money's not doing what it was
anything
intended.
over like £1. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's crazy. One thing I did want to bring up actually, just before I forget, about before I started a channel. Probably haven't made this connection yet, but you were going live with the Brothers Gwyn a couple of months ago, and I was using my personal YouTube profile, and this is before I started my channel, and I commented on there, and I just said hello, whatever, from Australia, and I said, "G'day from 4 a.m. in Australia, watching it about 4 a.m." And both of you were like, "Whoa, that's dedication! G'day!" Yeah. That was me. So that was before I started this channel, and I was watching you guys at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, those are nice kids right there. Those two are like what I hope my 2 boys grow up to be like someday. That so close. Cool. It's really awesome. So right now, it's like whole reason I started doing this Percy Jackson thing is I'm hoping he'll get so excited that at one point I'll be like, oh, I can't read tonight, and he'll pick it up and read it on his own. Because right now he will not read on. He's dyslexic, so that's one thing that's kind of holding him back from reading on his own. But the other thing is iPads. He just wants to play his iPad. iPad or book? Let me think. I mean, I might have made those decisions when I was his age too.
Yeah, I think I get a big question from my friends about like how can I read? Like how can I find more time to read and actually like finish a book and stuff? And I'm just like, phone, maybe put the phone on.
Dude, the question I get asked the most: how do you read so much? I'm like, don't watch so much TV. And don't scroll your phone all night. You'll be surprised you have hours of reading.
I know. And it's like, it's not like we're saying, oh, you can't watch TV and you can only read books and TV and stuff. It's like, you're asking me, how do you want to finish a book? And I'm just saying, just try it. If you want to finish a book, just try doing that.
It's funny. There's 2 reasons I bought a Kindle. One was because eye strain, because reading off an iPad was murdering my eyes. The second was because distractions. On my iPad, I had all the social media right there. I had the internet right there. So I say, you get a Kindle, and you just put your phone somewhere else. You just sit down with your Kindle, and all of a sudden you're like, boom, you're just in this different universe, and you don't care about anything else.
Yeah, you can't download music or,
if you've got those distractions, man, you will use them. I'm just going to look at this real quick, and real quick turns into a half hour. Well, I've been looking at Instagram for a half hour, So
real quick, yeah. I mean, I try and limit I've got my social medias and, sorry, I've got my social medias and stuff for my for my personal stuff and my channel and stuff, but I really don't use it all that much because I've gotten to the point where I know that I enjoy picking up a book more than doing that. And I feel like when I tell these people that you should try it, I'm like, you will end up enjoying a book more. I promise you. When you realize how rewarding it is, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, no, books are great because you can cast anyone in your head, so you got to get mad about who they cast to play a part. There's no budget restraints. You don't have to worry about them changing everything from the book because you're reading the book. It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's, when people say, oh, you've got all these books and they must be so expensive and stuff, and it's like, well, it's a little bit pricey, but for the amount that one book can give you, like a whole week, and it's like, you're paying, apologies, you're paying $20 and you get a whole season's worth of a blockbuster television series.
So I tell them, I'm like, hey, you know what? My book shopping trip was cheaper than your bar tab, and I got something to show for it. So
it's like annual, Netflix subscription or.
And that's right. I'm not telling people I never watch TV. They're like, oh, you talk about TV stuff on your weekly update. I was like, I'm not saying I don't watch TV at all. I'm saying I just don't spend 25 hours a week watching TV, 30 hours a week playing games, and I was on TikTok for 9 hours last night. I don't do that. I use social media mostly just for marketing for the channel. Facebook I have for kids pictures, so my mom isn't constantly asking me for kids pictures. And Twitter I keep just because of sports stuff. It's still the best way to keep up with sports. But
Yeah.
baseball season's over and my other team sucks, so I don't really care about that right now. So
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten to that point where I've enjoyed reading so much, like since I've gotten back into it, that I struggle to find time to watch TV and play games and go on social media because I'm just always reading and stuff.
my wife gets grumpy sometimes when she's like, you want to watch something? I'm like, no, when I got like one more chapter. And she's just like, forget it.
I think the same thing happens with me as well. No, but it's, I think there's a lot, going back to the classics and stuff. I think people think that they're kind of like gatekeeped in a way and think that because of what high school does and all, they think that there's no fun in them. And they think that there's not great stories and stuff. And it's like, I've seen how much you harp on about Count of Monte Cristo and stuff. And it's like, I haven't read that, but from what that sounds like the craziest story I've ever heard.
It's nuts, but it's commitment. It's
like
1,200 pages long. Yeah.
How long did, I mean, it might have been a while ago, but do you know how long roughly it took you to read The Unabridged?
Count of Monte Cristo? Gosh, probably like a whole semester of high school, because that was one I did for fun. I didn't do that because the school made us. I just checked it out from the library and had to go back and keep rechecking it out. So probably like a whole semester. Yeah, because just reading a little bit at a time.
How long was this semester in the US?
This was probably like from September through December. So about 4 months.
Oh, 3 months. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so that
was also while I, had a social life. I was still in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
I had friends back then.
Yeah, you weren't just reading. No, not me.
I had real life friends, not online friends.
Yeah, I was actually talking to some of my mates last night, and I ended up leaving the conversation because I was reading Storm of Swords, and I just had enough texting. And then I come back, and they'd send all these messages saying, "Oh, where did Archie go? Where did Archie go?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I was just reading Game of Thrones. Sorry." And they're just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, good question by Jesse. Do you think modern books will be classics one day? I mean, I gotta believe so. Like for example, I was reading The Expanse recently, and it takes place about 250 years in our future. And one of the characters makes a Dune reference, and someone said, "Oh, I just couldn't take that seriously. It kind of took me out of it." And I'm like, "Do you think people won't be talking about Dune in 200 years?" Because I mean, we're talking about Frankenstein 200 years later. Why won't we be talking about Dune? So if you consider Dune is coming up on 60 years old, and it's still talked about. It's talked about as a classic now. I mean, what's to say stuff we're reading right now someday won't be considered classics? But
yeah, that's a really good question. I think that any book, no matter what, that brings up like a new idea or something, a new intellectual thought process or something. Because I haven't read Dune, but I've watched a lot of videos on it, and my friend gifted it to me because it's his favorite book, and I'm going to read it next year. And I have heard.
Great friend. Yeah,
they got me this hardback, this deluxe edition and stuff. So
nice.
I'm going to be doing it next year. But I think from what I've heard, it introduces a lot of unique ideas. And
I think you got to kind of consider what has staying power, and two, it appeals to more than just, let's be honest, sci-fi fantasy fans, we're niche. We're a niche group, so I think it has to appeal to broad audiences. So I think of this generation, I think Harry Potter, people will be talking about that 50, 100 years from now. That's the next Narnia. I've said that's probably the next Narnia, and that people will just continue to pass it down to their kids and their kids and I mean, my kids are all about Harry Potter, because I passed it down to them. So I think that's something that if I had to pick something right now that I think will be considered a classic in, 50, 100 years, I think people will still be talking about Harry Potter.
Well, I feel like even though it's, what is it, approaching like, 20
years, 25 years, yeah.
I feel like it's probably already a modern classic due to the...
Oh, for sure. I go to bookstores now, and they still have huge sections of just Harry Potter merchandise. And I'm just like, wow.
Just merch and stuff. Well, they're re-releasing, like, the amount of times they re-release it, and they've got these, like, 20th edition...
Yes, as someone who's currently collecting number 2 and 3 complete volumes of these, because I have my original hardcovers, getting the illustrated ones, which are still coming out, and those Mina Lima ones where you, like build them. So, I'll keep buying them over and over again, most likely.
Yeah. An interesting point as well to bring into Jesse's question. I had a friend that asked me a similar thing a few weeks ago, and he said, "Do you think that they will be like studied in high school, like classic books that were being written today? Will they be actually studied in high school in 100 years or so, or do you think things like YouTube videos will be studied?" And I said, I actually found it a really difficult question to answer because I thought that I think that literature will change and different things will be classics or whatever. But I think throughout all of time, it doesn't seem that academia has changed all that much. It seems it's still research essay, discuss ideas, research essay, sort of things like that. I think that while literature might change, I don't think that they're going to say, oh, we're going to introduce, a video instead of, I can't see a transition from YouTube, from books to analyzing YouTube videos.
I mean, I do feel like less and less people read. I think that's unfortunate. Well, one thing I will say that is really great about audiobooks, even though I can't do them, is that it's got more people interested in, books, even if they're not reading them, they're listening to them. It's got more people involved in book series now than, we were just a decade ago. So I think that's a really great thing. But anything that's getting people to consume these stories more is something I'm in favor of, because I want to say, I can't believe there'll ever be a day where we just don't read books anymore. But I see more and more people just, walking around like this all the time, where I'm just like, I don't know, man, it'd be nice if you were just shoving a book in your face that way, But
I get so happy when I see someone else on the train reading a book. I'm like, yes.
I saw someone in line reading a Kindle, and I was like,
my guy. Yeah, I think I remember I was at the state library the other day. It was state library is the huge library in Victoria. It's mainly like a study space and stuff, but it's got all these old texts and stuff, and it's really huge. And it's in the CBD of Melbourne. And I was there reading a book, and it's a huge room, huge. And I was the only person reading a book. The only one. Everyone else was like studying and stuff, which is fine. And I was just like, wow, this is really interesting. And I think that was literally my goal. My secondary goal with starting the channel was firstly to meet people to talk to about books. And secondly was to try and promote it more. And I feel like, with my slowly growing audience and stuff, and my friends seeing that I've started this channel, I think I'm doing a little bit. I think that was really all I wanted to do as my secondary goal. So that's, since starting it, I've had some friends and stuff that have been picking up more and stuff, sort of being inspired by it and stuff. And that's really all I wanted to do.
Great. Yeah, that's for me. I want to keep everything positive. I want to show people there's nothing wrong with reading, man. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with reading, and there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. It's okay.
Yeah. I love
that's great that I didn't like. Cool. Let's talk about it. No one's right. No one's wrong. I mean, besides music, I think books might be the most subjective thing ever. So, because I mean, no one's going to agree on music. It's almost impossible, but it seemed like we kind of, as a people, gotten to this point of like, agree with me or else. And I was like, man, echo chambers are boring, man. There's like nothing to talk about. So that's how we learn from each other. If we have disagreements, let's talk about it. You know what? We can still go get a beer afterwards and still
exactly.
Why do we have to fight? It's a book. Why are we fighting about a book?
And the next one you read, you might like together, and it's fine. You're allowed to. Jesse, I don't feel like modern culture's entertainment is conducive to reading. Far too many distractions, 100%. And that's why I think what Mike said, what you said about audiobooks and stuff. I feel like if someone can only do audiobooks and that makes them read, that's amazing. If that transitions them into picking up more books or making a library membership and borrowing a physical one, whatever, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in my Discord that will, listen in the car and they'll just sync it up and they'll read when they're at home, but they'll listen to it when they're in the car.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I get jealous, really. I wish I could. Like, I think about all the times I'm like, washing dishes and stuff. I'd love to be, listening to a book instead of, listening like playing.
I'm the same. I can't do it because I get, if I start an audiobook,
attention. Yeah.
My cat will knock something over or whatever. And then it's like, oh, I've got to rewind. And then because the recordings are like 18 hours long and I'm trying to scroll and I'm like,
I tell people all the time is that I think I just got so used to blocking my kids out that now I just can't turn it off because I tried listening to like the Dresden Files, like short stories. And like, I listened to them. I was like, I couldn't tell you 90% of what happened in them because I was just thinking about other things. So it's weird. I don't have any reading ADD, but listening ADD, huh?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. I've only actually listened to about one audiobook ever, like full, and it was one of the ones I did recently. I read Trainspotting by Irvine Welsh, and that book it's set in Edinburgh, it's set in Scotland, and it's written as if it has a Scottish accent. So it's in English, but all the words are spelt like, way is spelt like WAE, or like we is WIE and stuff, and it's really hard to read. And I listened to it with the audiobook and it was a Scottish narrator and stuff. And that actually really helped my experience. But I was following along while I was reading it and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like that would definitely be something you need some assistance on because that would be way too confusing. I thought Cormac McCarthy was hard to follow. That sounds
What kind of language does he right? As in,
He does this thing in Blood Meridian where he decides he's not going to use capitalization or punctuation anymore, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's genius!" And I'm like, "If I did that, you guys would call me an idiot." But
yeah, well,
genius. Yeah,
I read Ulysses recently by James Joyce, and the final chapter is 60 pages of no full stops or punctuation. So I've done it. George doesn't scare me.
yeah, that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, it is. Okay, and when I do audiobooks when doing chores around it, yeah, I love that. Like, I wish I could.
Yeah, that's how some of these people they make these booktubers make these videos. I read 117 books last month. I'm like, last month? I just crossed 85 for the year, you know?
And you're just like, I wish I don't have a problem with you doing it, but I just want to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I was like, man, think about how much more I could cover if I did that.
Yeah.
I mean, like Brian Lee Durfee's new book just came out like 2 weeks ago, and I'm on like page 300, which in that book is like a quarter of the way through it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, hey, where's the fire? You know, and everybody else is like, yeah, we're done. I'm like,
yeah. Did you see that part when that happened and you're like, oh, it's been out for 4 hours?
Actually, that's a bad example because I don't believe that one has an audiobook. But for most cases, a lot of these times, like, oh yeah, let's do a read along, and like audiobookers are done in like a day, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll talk to you about it next week.
So they're like, Mike, you're slow, man.
No, they're actually not mean about it. You will find some people be like, why is it taking you so long to read that? And I'm like, I listened to it at a day of work, and I'm like, well, that's why, right there. You know, but it's fine. It's fine. You don't get a lot of that. I don't think that you get a lot of I read it faster than you. You will get a lot of YouTubers who are like, I read it first. Yeah, I could get my review up first. I'm not that guy. But
I just do it when I get the time. I just do the reviews when I finish the book.
I see some of these people who put these audiobooks on like 3 speed, and I'm just like, how are you consuming this, man? How are you registering all this? But other people's brains work at a higher function than mine.
Yeah. It makes me jealous. It makes me really jealous. Get those stories in. Jesse, I've never given audiobooks a try. And to one of rather physical. Yeah, I'm the same. I can't do audiobooks like Mike, where I actually can't. But I am happy with pages. I love the idea of the smell of paper when I walk into a bookstore and I smell that paper. I love it. But if I could do audio, I probably would as well, because it would help.
Yeah, I prefer still to read physical. It's so much easier when you're an epic fantasy reader and you're going to go anywhere and you got these books that are this thick, is to take the Kindle. And I like to read the Kindle in bed. So if I fall asleep, it doesn't break my face, so, but take it to work. And that's the thing, man. At work, when I'm reading at work, holy crap, man. You think I was sitting there like snorting coke off my desk or something, the way people react. Are you reading a book? Yeah. I have no idea why people think that's weird. That's how I say, how do we get here? How did we get here?
That's crazy. I mean, it's not too bad. It's pretty normal because I work at a library, so usually everyone's either reading a book or pottering around the kitchen. But someone from work, a colleague, was also telling me that back in when she was a kid, people would go to the pub or like a bar, and they would both bring a book, like a couple or something. Both bring a book and they'd have a drink and they'd read a book in the bar together. Yeah, like that is so cool. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think when me and my wife were first dating, and I was like, I knew I was dating the right person when we were both reading a book like right next to each other, not even talking, and we felt like we were spending time together. And I was like, okay, I found a good one.
This is the one. I found a good one. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up with a final question.
Sure.
Now this one actually doesn't have to do with books. I'm sorry, audience, but I know you're a metalhead, and you like old rock and stuff. And apart from reading, music is my favorite thing. And so I wanted to ask you, because I'm a bit of a metalhead myself. I listen to mainly some newer stuff, and I like Slipknot and like Nirvana and stuff, some of the 90s stuff. And I wanted to ask you, what are some of your favorite albums of all time that I can check out after this to keep my experience?
Oh boy. Well, let's start with some of the metal ones here. I think Master of Puppets by Metallica is a staple. You have to listen to that one if you haven't. Rust in Peace by Megadeth is a favorite. Rain and Blood by Slayer is always a go-to. Among the Living by Anthrax. That's really like the big four, as they call them, the thrash bands. But some of my favorite albums of all time, like Bad Out of Hell by Meatloaf, I think is a perfect rock album, rock opera album. So it's a little different, but I mean, I like so much stuff that I don't know. I mean, Judas Priest, anything by Judas Priest or Black Sabbath or Ozzy,
All
solos.
right.
I just go like anything. It's hard for me, but yeah, if you're like just starting with metal, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna pick up Master of Puppets by Metallica,
Okay.
and you're gonna pick up Power Slave by Iron Maiden and things like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I've listened to some Slayer. I like Slayer.
Yeah,
Slayer's well.
they're good. They're good. They're good. So.
I think I watched one of your videos where you were talking about some music and stuff. On
my other channel, I did the best rock albums of the '90s. And
yeah,
I wanted an excuse to keep my CDs.
Yeah. I think I heard you were saying that you didn't mind Slipknot, but you weren't like too.
I like Slipknot a lot, but it's never one that I'm like, that's one of my favorite albums of all time. Yeah. Mastodon, Jesse, yes, I love Mastodon. Crack the Sky is a bloody brilliant album. It's like heavy metal Pink Floyd. It's amazing.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna check all those out. I was rewatching your interview with Jay Kristoff as well, and you guys were talking about some music as well. And he told you, I'm not sure if you did it, but he told you about Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah. He still. I mean, we talked a year ago, and he still will occasionally email me, "Hey, man, check these bands out." And he'll link me like 6 YouTube videos. So yeah, he's very committed to get me into some new metal bands. But yeah, Bring Me the Horizon, very, very good, very good.
Yeah, awesome. All right, keep listening to Bring Me the Horizon, and I'm going to listen to all those ones you just listed: some Slayer, some Megadeth, some.
Outstanding. Back when they could play guitar, it's great.
Yeah, right. It's not like Guitar Hero, like plastic. Actually, no, it's not when guitars are done on a keyboard.
It works for some people.
Back to the basics. All right, well, I think I'll wrap it up there. I'm going to go and do my homework now.
Don't miss them days.
No. I mean like homework is in listening to the music you just gave me. That's
okay. All right. Yeah. You're a college student. Okay.
I got nothing due. So
remember, I went back to school in my late 30s. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, I'm just getting Jesse's last comments.
Yeah, he's got some good metal.
Chat replay is going to be on, so I'm going to be looking at all those Mudvayne, like Slipknot, in a lot of ways, the bass skills. Awesome. All right, you guys are the best. I'm going to check all those out on the chat replay. So thank you to everyone who has tuned in. This has been super, super fun, and I've been absolutely honored to have Mike on here. Such an inspiration for me to start my channel, and this has been a wonderful time. So stay safe in Texas, and we'll look out for that weather. So
you do the same, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. We'll chat later. See you, Mike.